Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really famous, but honestly super misunderstood ancient text. It's known all over the world, but its popular name completely hides what this book is really all about. See, it's not just a guide for dying, it's a guide for living with this incredible, next-level awareness. So, you've probably heard of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, right? But what if I told you that title is, well, it's just plain wrong? What if this book isn't really about death? At least not the way we think about it. Turns out that name was a Western invention, and it kind of makes it sound like some morbid, spooky thing, but the real goal? Oh, it's something way more liberating. And this is the central, startling proposition of the text. It reframes what we see as a final stop into the single most significant moment for spiritual liberation. The idea is that the transition of death is a state of huge potential, a time when your mind is perfectly set up to reach its highest possible awareness. Wild, right? Okay, so how are we going to tackle something this deep? Here's the plan. First up, we're going to bust that huge myth about its name. Then we'll get to know the amazing inner astronauts from Tibet who came up with this. After that, we're diving into the six betweens, these hidden transitional moments in all of our lives. We're even going to map out the journey after death as they saw it. And to wrap it all up, we'll get to the big one. Why should any of this matter to you and me today? All right, first things first, let's clear up a huge misunderstanding, and it all starts with that popular name. You see, the title we know in the West, it isn't just a simple translation. Nope, it's an interpretation, and frankly, one that completely misses the whole point. So, have a look here. On the left, that's the name everyone recognizes. But on the right, that's the real title. It translates to something like the Great Book of Natural Liberation Through Understanding in the Between. See the huge difference there? It's not a book for dead people. It's a guide for finding freedom in those in-between moments that make up our whole existence. And this is the key. That word bardo, it doesn't just mean afterlife. It literally just means the between. So this whole book, it's a manual for navigating all these transitional states. And we're not just talking about death. We're talking about the space between sleeping and waking, even the little moments throughout your day. It's basically a map for every single fluid moment of your life. Okay, so where did a book like this even come from? We've got to talk about the culture that created it. Because to really get this book, you have to understand a civilization that was way more interested in exploring inner space than outer space. They basically created their own kind of inner modernity. And this quote just nails it. The translator, Robert Thurman, he calls Tibet's spiritual masters psychonauts. It's such a perfect term. Think about it. While the West was building rockets to send astronauts to the moon, Tibetan culture was developing methods to send psychonauts to the farthest reaches of the mind. So what you end up with are these two totally different kinds of modernity. Western modernity, right? It's all about looking outward, mastering the material world. But Tibetan modernity, that was all about looking inward, mastering the mind, figuring out what consciousness even is. Their whole national goal, you could say, was about spiritual growth, not just making more stuff. And, it's really important to remember the context here. As the translator points out in his dedication, this incredible civilization that gave the world this profound inner science, they've suffered immensely. Their culture was basically shattered during the Chinese occupation that started in 1949. So this intense focus on exploring the mind, it led to this incredibly detailed map of consciousness. They didn't just talk about one bardo after you die. No, they identified 6 totally distinct transitional states, these betweens, that actually cover our entire existence. Now here's the real mindbender. From their point of view, everything is a between state. Life itself, that's the bardo between birth and death. Dreaming, that's the bardo between sleeping and waking. What this means is that they see reality as constantly in flux, unstable, fluid, and because of that, it's always full of potential to be transformed. This is basically the foundation of mindfulness, right? Noticing the gap between your thoughts, the space between breaths, and using those little moments to wake up. And this table here lays it all out so clearly. It starts with the ones we're familiar with. Life is the between of birth and death. Dreams are the between of sleeping and waking. Simple enough. But then it gets more subtle. Trance, like in deep meditation, that's the between that separates our everyday thinking from pure awareness. And then you've got the 3 bardos after death. The moment of death itself, then the bardo of reality, and finally the bardo of existence that pulls you toward a new birth. When you see your whole life mapped out like this, man, it really hits home that nothing is solid and every single moment is an opportunity. Okay, so we've got the framework. Now, how does the book actually guide someone through those specific betweens that happen after you die? This is where it stops being philosophy and becomes a super practical, step-by-step manual for the ultimate journey. So first, let's just compare the two main views. The typical modern Western idea is that death is a flat line on a machine. Game over. The end of consciousness. But the Tibetan view couldn't be more different. For them, death isn't a wall you hit. It's a door you walk through. It's a transition into this fluid state where your consciousness keeps going. And here's the kicker, it can be directed. So what decides where you go? The book has this amazing term for it, your evolutionary momentum. It's really just a beautiful way of talking about karma. Think of it like the trajectory of a rocket. It's the combined force of all your habits, all your actions, the good, the bad, all of it. And in the bardo, for a very short time, that trajectory can be adjusted. You get this incredibly powerful but very brief chance to change your course. And that momentum, that trajectory, can pull you toward one of 6 possible realms. Now, it's super important to understand these aren't literal physical places. They're psychological states. So if your life was dominated by anger, you might experience a hell-like state. If you were driven by constant gnawing greed, you could end up in the realm of the hungry ghosts. The point is, they're all just projections of your own mind, totally shaped by the habits you built up your entire life. So the journey itself is mapped out in 3 main stages. Stage 1, at the exact moment of death, you get a flash of what's called the clear light. This is supposed to be the pure, unfiltered nature of reality itself. Then, stage 2, you start having these visions, peaceful deities, wrathful deities, but the book is super clear on this. They are just projections of your own mind. It's like your karma putting on a massive light and sound show. And then finally, stage 3, your momentum, your habits, they take over and pull you toward a new rebirth. Okay, so 1,000-year-old map of the afterlife. Why on earth should we care about this today in the 21st century? Well, here's why. Because its real purpose was never just about how to die well. It's always been about how to live well. And the source puts it in terms that might remind you of something called Pascal's wager. The logic is pretty straightforward. Look, if it turns out there's nothing after death, and you spent your life preparing, what did you really lose? Not much. But if consciousness does continue, and you did absolutely nothing to prepare, you could face some serious regret. So there's basically no downside to preparing, and a potentially infinite upside. And that's really the heart of it. The book's greatest gift isn't for the dead. It's a powerful tool for those of us who are still alive. It's teaching us that by really looking at our own mortality, by facing it, we can actually live with less fear and with way more purpose. It's a wake-up call to sort things out with people, to tell them you love them, to focus on what's real, because every single moment is precious, and every moment is practice. So we're left with the question this ancient book is really asking all of us. If you stop seeing death as an ending and start seeing it as the ultimate opportunity for freedom, a moment of incredible potential, how does that change the way you're going to live your life starting right now?